Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. So on today's show, we're going back to a franchise that we've previously covered in the last couple of weeks, which is the Rocky films. And today we're of course covering Creed and Creed 2, the latest renditions in that franchise. Super excited for this one, buddy. Are these the first time you watched these films, or like did you watch them previously, or what was your thoughts going in? Any recollections?
Yeah, I hadn't really touched the franchise because, of course, I wanted to watch all the Rocky films, and watching six Rocky films was a bit of a big task. So I thought better save it for the podcast and then
Sure.
watch the Creed films, after we'd already done that. But six films was tough to get through, and I had very low expectations for the Rocky films. But coming out of them, absolutely loved some of them. So I was really amped for these films
Mhm.
because as they were coming out, I had absolutely no interest. Sports in real life, I have no interest. Sports in film, not usually, but a couple really great sports films have slipped through the cracks, and I think the Creed films definitely follow that formula.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's I kind of wish I was a Rocky fan when these films were announced, because I think I would have been so gassed, like I would have been so excited for these, especially because I think we both really enjoyed the Apollo Creed character. So, but yeah, just before we kick off today's episode, thanks very much for everyone who supported us recently. Callum and I, of course, really do appreciate that. And if you'd like to email us with any podcast suggestions or questions, moviematespodcast@gmail.com. We're always there to answer any of those. And yeah, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on the Creed films down below. We'd love to hear them. So, I suppose just full spoilers, I guess, bud, because they've been out for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one.
These films are very cinematic. I think they're beautifully filmed. So I'm really looking forward to Creed 3 just because I,
Me
I
too.
think the fight sequences at the end of the films look absolutely incredible, and I just think seeing that at the cinema will be a whole different
Dude,
experience.
I literally the same thing. I just the biggest praise I can give these two films. I love how they look. Like the boxing scenes in this is some of the best action I think I've ever seen in a movie. Like it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like it's not over it. Like obviously it's filmed in a green screen and stuff, so it looks reasonably fake, but it looks so good as well. Like it looks unreal, and the sound quality with it is amazing as well. So good.
I know, like when we talk about the first Rocky film, where the punches aren't landing, and the punch sound effects are like a jingling bag of change.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is an insane different
It
level.
is. It really is. But it really is. Does it make you like those Rocky films less looking back?
No, because I always like to look back on things with a sense of nostalgia, even if I hadn't seen them. But I always put my mind into a person of the time, and I think what would my reaction have been had I sat down in the cinema in the 1970s, the 1980s, and watched these films?
Hmm.
And I think the Rocky films really set a certain standard for sports films. But really, I haven't seen a boxing film like this before. Like Rocky. I had my issues with Rocky, but I mean, have you really seen a boxing film that was quite like that?
No, to be honest, I think yeah, everyone looks at the Rocky films and thinks they're a staple of boxing films. But a lot recently, I think there was Southpaw starring Jake Gyllenhaal that came out
Yeah,
recent. Well, not recently, but reasonably recently. And then there was one with Tom Hardy. I think it was called Warrior, along that
hmm
degree. And then of
yeah.
course, Creed. But no, I'm kind of with you, buddy. I think the part of the charm is the Rocky films is that it's of its time, and that it is sort of genre defining. So no complaints from me as to the quality and how it stacks up to Creed. Although the Creed is it's just on another level, isn't it?
And if you want to talk about the first film, we
Yeah,
can talk about sort of the franchise in general. In that, the Rocky franchise, I think, needed a reinvigoration. We did
absolutely.
not need a Rocky 7. I would have happily seen the franchise end on Rocky 5, but then they dredged it back up for Rocky Balboa, which was an admirably good film, but I think wholly unnecessary. So I think if you were going to dredge this franchise back up again, it needed to not have Rocky at the forefront. I think Rocky as the lead had run its course, and I think even the scenes where he does appear in this film seem out of place. They feel like his appearance in the film, it feels a bit forced. Did you feel the same at all?
It's funny you mention that, buddy, because I kind of liken Rocky's appearance in this film to like a minor side character from the standpoint that if you take away his scenes from the film, there's not a massive amount that changes in Donnie's story, really, particularly. But that being said, I actually thought it was a really great addition to the film. But I think it's definitely fitting that the movie's called Creed because this isn't Rocky's story. He's had his time in the spotlight. This is about Donnie Creed. So no, I'm pretty much on the same lines with you, buddy.
Yeah, because I feel like, of course, Rocky is responsible for Adonis's, training throughout the film, but I feel
Yeah,
like he had shown the self-determination throughout the beginning act of the film that he could have trained himself. He was constantly turned away from gyms, and he refused to use the Creed name until convinced to do otherwise near the end of the film.
yeah.
But I feel like he had I feel like he had the determination to train himself.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's part of the reason why I love the character. He's so determined. Is that, and I remember, BHL Hudson, a YouTuber that we both enjoy. Like he loves these films, especially the first one. And he had sort of said I had watched a video of his before this about what he thought, and he did. I agree with everything he said. He sort of said that the character of Donnie is so like it's a very motivational, inspirational character. For sure, and I actually think, yeah, you're right. He seems like a very motivated guy. He probably could have trained himself. Um, but yeah, it's kind of a thing. Like I think if you take away Rocky Five, this film, like I think Rocky Five kind of tars it for me because it's a very similar story. Apart from this is sort of Rocky Five if it went right kind of thing, and it kind of put that seed of doubt in my mind whether Rocky would actually go through and train another people. Like he doesn't know Donnie. Like he doesn't know him. I suppose he's doing it out of guilt because of what happened to Apollo. But even still, like given what happened with Tommy Gunn, it doesn't. It stands to reason in my head that it's not consistent with the Rocky character to train Donnie, given what happened the first time he trained someone.
I mean, it is quite begrudging that he trains,
It
Adonis. Like
is. It
it
is.
is
Yeah.
fairly pressured, at least to begin with. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. Tommy Gunn sort of betrayed his entire being, and I feel
Hmm.
like that maybe would have pushed him to that point. Also, at this point, they have just completely ignored the fact that Rocky has brain damage. It's just not a factor anymore. Like
That's
Rocky
true.
Balboa somewhat ignored it, but this it's just
It's just not
swept under the
there.
carpet entirely.
Hmm.
So the fact that because Tommy Gunn was such a terrible character because he took advantage of someone that had suffered brain damage, and he completely betrayed Rocky.
Yeah.
And here, I feel like you know, I feel like the significance of the fact that Adonis is so different to Tommy Gunn. I feel like that's not as significant a point because he doesn't have that chance to betray him as significantly as Tommy Gunn did, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know,
100%, buddy. hundred
like
percent.
he
Yeah.
didn't have the opportunity that Tommy Gunn did because they've just completely ignored that part of Rocky's character.
Yeah. I think you're right, buddy. I think you're right. I think they're very different. And one thing that really did surprise me in this film in regards to performances is real life former cruiserweight champion Tony Bellew playing Ricky Conlon. And I'm a big Tony Bellew fan from before I'd seen this film, and he's actually great. He's actually really good, I think.
Yeah, I mean when you compare him to like Tommy Morrison and even
Yeah,
you know
the dude who
I
played
mean I
Mason
suppose
Dixon.
the
Can't
I
remember
don't
his name.
remember the name of the guy who plays Mason Dixon for Rocky Balboa, but his performance was admirable. But yeah, I do definitely agree. The Tony Bellew's next level in this
Yeah,
film.
yeah, he's good, and he obviously given that he's a professional boxer in real life, he definitely holds his own in the action scenes. But Michael B. Jordan also holds himself as well, holds himself well in that regard. And I remember there's a Graham Norton clip where like he takes a real punch to the face by Tony Belly, and like that dude is like a warrior. That dude is elite. So to take a punch
I
from that
know.
is like crazy.
I mean, the fact that like Sylvester Stallone, had convinced Michael B. Jordan to do that by saying that he had taken plenty of punches in the Rocky franchise. I'm not convinced that's true. I mean,
I'm
like
not convinced that's true either.
we talked about how terrible like the fight choreography is in the original Rocky films, where just none of the punches connect. So I really don't necessarily believe
Yeah,
Sylvester
yeah.
Stallone there.
No, me neither. I'm a bit doubtful, to be honest.
And we both love the character of Apollo Creed, and of course, this film is Creed. It's about the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed, Adonis, and I'm so disappointed, Matthew.
Really?
Apollo Creed was my man, and he cheated on his wife. And
Yeah, 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 yeah,
adultery just makes me lose respect for someone.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I,
He
I
doesn't
don't
seem like
know.
that type of guy,
I
though, does
love
he?
that man. You know,
He doesn't seem
he
like that
seems
type of
so
guy.
generous and thoughtful. At least by Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh,
seemed so pure and innocent.
I know.
At least as I said by Rocky
God
3
damn
and
it.
Rocky 4. You know, in his mind, he's fighting for his country. You know, he seemed like a really thoughtful man. And you know, I
God
suppose
damn
this
it.
affair happened right around the time of Rocky 4. And I don't know if I ever went back to watch those films, because I went into this film knowing that he was, of course, Apollo Creed's son, but I didn't realize he was his illegitimate son. And I feel like going back and watching the Rocky films, I'll have a whole different
Yeah, I know what you mean.
perspective
I know what
on
you mean,
Apollo.
buddy. It's devastating. It really is. And you know, one thing that we spoke about before we did this podcast yesterday was the on-screen tail of the tape, where it shows, you know, the boxers' nickname, the amount of knockouts they have, and their, you know, their record. And we both sort of said it didn't fit the tone of the film. I personally didn't mind it, although it definitely didn't match the tone of the film. But it's very, you know, like you said, it's very, you know, Suicide Squad, Transformers: The Last Night, isn't it? It's very of its time. You know,
Yeah,
that sort of
if people don't know
2015
what that is, because is that sports term?
tail of the tape. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to people like me who are a bit, you know, sort of ignorant to the whole sports things, we
Oh no,
mean
it's
sort
all
of where
right. It's all right.
the stats appear whenever we're introduced to a new character, you know, showing their you know, fighting effectiveness. And yeah, it was so jarring, because you know this film takes itself so seriously, even more than the original Rocky, because I feel like there was more humor present in the original Rocky. Like it knew that it was a bit funny in that it's like
Yeah.
not the best film,
Hmm.
but this film is, you know, trying to be the best version of itself. And then when that appeared,
Yeah.
I was taken aback. I was like,
You know,
oh
I
no.
agree. I do agree with you 100%, buddy, 100%. And you know, one thing about this film, it does take itself very seriously, and I think it's definitely more of a character study of that. It's sort of very similar to how I sort of would view the first Rocky film. That with that one was a study of a character study of Rocky. With this one, it's a character study of Adonis. And I just love how like Ryan Coogler's directed this personally. You know, he let scenes play out so well. There's no unnecessary cuts in there. You can almost feel all the punches, especially from, you know, Tony Bellew's character, you know, and things like that. And it's so good. Like I do quite like sort of action where it's like cut, 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 cut. I mean, I love the Winter Soldier for that, but I probably even like it even more when it's just you can see what's happening. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, and there's no over use of slow mo like the original Rocky. Like this is just pure gritty, great action done right, I think.
Yeah, yeah, obviously the best action is where you can see what's happening. And I think that every Rocky film is you know, admirable for that fact, because
Mm-hmm.
you know, no matter how badly the punches are thrown and you know how little they connect, the original Rocky films, you know, you know exactly what's happening. And
100%.
well, aside from Rocky Balboa, which is a disaster, at least when it comes to fight choreography and editing, but you know, I definitely agree with you here. It is very admirably filmed. And Matthew, one of the characters introduced into the Rocky mythology that we both despise is Polly. And I went to celebrate Polly's death because, of course, there's a moment in the film where it's discovered that Polly is dead and Rocky visits his gravestone.
Yeah.
And I sort of like revved up to celebrate, but then like for a second I was like, "Oh, I mean, the actor's quite old, and like Sylvester Stallone's in his 70s." And I was like, is this guy dead? Like, I don't think I should celebrate the death of the character if it's because the actor is dead.
Yeah.
So, you know, I found out that he isn't. You know, just to soothe your conscience there, Matthew.
Thank you, mate.
So
Thank
so the
you.
actor is alive, and then I celebrated guilt free that I that I didn't
I
have to deal with that dumb dickhead ruining
Yeah.
everybody's life
Can you
again.
imagine if he was in this film? I think it would have definitely decreased the quality tenfold. I mean, I knew that the actor was still alive, so I was a little giddy when I realized that, you know, well, I knew he had passed, the character had passed away at least in these films. But it's so like what Ryan Coogler's done, right? He's got the characters that are pretty much like he doesn't want, like Paulie and like Rocky's son, and he's just like, yeah, fuck him. Let's just deal with the characters I want to deal with. You've no idea how much I respect that. He knows what he's doing. Thank God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Rocky's, you know, Rocky 2, 3, 4, and 6 are all great films, but I feel like Paulie just drags them down
He
from
does.
being,
He does.
near
And he gets
perfection.
worse.
Because
He gets absolutely
yeah,
so much worse as well.
because I mean, there are times within the franchise that they go like, "Oh, Paulie, you messed up. Paulie, you're not the best guy." But I feel like the films fail to recognize how bad of a guy he is, and it's sort of confusing when they do recognize that he is a bad guy, but keep him around anyway. It sort
Mhm.
of makes you feel less of the characters, even though they're being generous. But sometimes when you're generous to the wrong kind of person, that can still
Yeah.
piss other people off.
Mhm.
So I really feel that all the characters deserve better than Paulie, and they should have had the self-awareness to cut him off.
Mhm.
And we haven't actually talked much about the characters themselves within the film. And Donnie is, I think, a fundamentally unlikable character for whatever reason. I just immediately took disliking to him, but he was able to very quickly recover that, and I think the only reason is because Michael B. Jordan is playing him. I think if he
Yeah.
was played by anyone else, I would fundamentally dislike this character for the duration of the film.
I'm exactly the same, buddy. I'm exactly the same. Michael B. Jordan does a miracle here, like making that character go from dislikable to really likable by the end. And I think it's definitely down to like, I can't wait to see what he does in the third film when he's directing it as well. And I actually think the dynamic that that character has with Bianca as well is actually really great. I actually really like their romance. It's not something that I
Yeah,
think Ryan Coogler is particularly good at in his films, but actually here I think it's very good. Um, and there's a lot of scenes in this film where I think there's a lot of it's sort of nostalgia done right. We can see that the Donnie character is watching the old fights of his dad. I know we can also see Rocky. He's still got his turtles and stuff like that. He's still working in the Adrians. Like there's so much great stuff in there. And he's still got the chair that hangs on the tree and by the gravestones. So it's just a really great sort of film for new and old fans alike. And I think that's definitely down to Michael B. Jordan as well.
yeah, and it was so rewarding to sort of watch all the Rocky films back to back, and then we're obviously doing this maybe 3 or 4 weeks after we covered
I
the
think
Rocky
so.
films,
Yeah,
but I watched these immediately after I was done with Rocky Balboa, so it was a really rewarding experience to
absolutely. Yeah, I
watch
can
these
imagine for
back to
sure.
back,
For
and sort of
sure.
referencing like the romantic chemistry you mentioned. I do agree with you. Previous Ryan Coogler projects we've seen, which to my extent I believe I've only seen Black Panther, but the romance in that was fairly dry. It wasn't particularly
Hmm.
engaging or convincing. But here, and I think it is the fact that Tessa Thompson and Michael B. Jordan are two of the most charismatic people in the world.
Yeah,
Like the
absolutely,
romance was
absolutely.
immediate and organic, and I have to give full respect for that.
Hmm. One thing I will give Michael B. Jordan respect for, I think, and I don't know whether this is necessarily like a hot take, so to speak, but I think when people think who's the most ripped actor in Hollywood, people think Hugh Jackman, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth. Michael B. Jordan is an absolute tank. This guy is
Damn, I
absolutely
know.
huge, isn't he? Like we've seen in Killmonger, like he's even more bulky as Killmonger in the Black Panther films. Here, he's shred. I don't know. He somehow
Yeah,
remains shredded, but so big at the same time. Like he's not a big guy particularly. Like he never really struck me
yeah,
as like a tall guy. He's huge, man. He's so big.
I know. He's lean, but manages to just be huge. I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
huge.
It's
Weird.
yeah. It's the dichotomy in
Yeah.
his biceps. Can't believe
I
it.
know, and he actually seems like a really like nice guy as well. I've watched a few videos where it's like his daily routine and stuff like that, and like 73 questions or whatever. He's actually seemed like a really lovely guy. Um, and yeah, it's one thing I sort of want to say before I wrap up my thoughts is that I think I think this film, what it does right is the dynamics between the characters and stuff like that. I mean, there's a really great line towards the end where it's the Ricky Conlan and Creed fight towards the end, and Rocky's like, "I should have stopped this fight with your father. I'm stopping this one now." And then Donnie goes, "No, I want to prove that I'm not a mistake." And I actually thought it was a really emotional line because like he never really got to know his dad, and it's sort of he doesn't want to be stuck in Apollo Creed's shadow, and by the end of it, he escapes that. And I thought it was a really, really great message. And of course, mix that with the old Rocky theme, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've talked about how like sort of the message and how the fight ended, but I
Yeah.
feel like a fundamental talking point for any Rocky film or film of the franchise is the motivation. The
Yes,
first Rocky
absolutely.
film was about opportunity rather than winning. So it was Rocky felt the responsibility, to take this opportunity to sort of revive his career. and prove something to himself and to everyone else in his community.
Mhm.
But I feel that Donnie is different. I feel like he does have something to prove in this film. You know, about his ability to fight, because the beginning of the film, pretty much no one will train him. And quite honestly, I watched this a while ago. I don't remember why, but I know that he's pretty much turned away by every trainer. So I feel like he did have something to prove, and I feel that he needed the win. This film was about him trying to prove that he's worthy of the Creed name, and I feel like, no matter how unbelievable it would have been had he won the fight, I just found the fight itself underwhelming. I don't feel like the respect of Conlon and the crowd was enough. I feel like he needed the win.
That's a really good point, but it's a really good point. I think this fight certainly feels different to the first Rocky film, where I felt there it was definitely, it stood to reason for me anyway that it was okay for him to lose that fight, especially with this. With I think it was a decision. I think, yeah, it was a decision. But that being
Mm-hmm.
said, I think I personally was okay with him not winning the fight, but I think maybe I it's because I really didn't find the Ricky Conlon character that unlikable, to be honest. Because like I've seen Tony Belly outside of film, and he's a really nice guy. So I think it's
Yeah, he
always
he really just came across as any British boxer, like
yeah.
any British
He wasn't
boxer.
particularly an arsehole, was he? Like he wasn't particularly a bad
You
guy,
know,
really.
and half of that is, even if you did, dislike his attitude, that's all persona. Whenever we saw him in his sort of private moments at his home, he seemed a perfectly likable guy.
Yeah.
But anything to do with like public beef, it's all about marketing. It's never actually fair to judge someone based on their public persona, at least
Mhm.
when it comes to professional fighters.
Yeah, that's so true, mate. That's so true. I don't actually have any more remarks in regards to the first Creed, mate. Anything from yourself, and I'll try to chip
No,
in.
no, no, nothing more for me. Quite honestly, a lot of my points, I'm like, what do I even mean? And I think that happens when you write notes well in advance. So at some point next year or this year, I suppose,
Sure, yeah.
uh, you know, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage will be coming out, and I wrote notes on the first Venom maybe 6 or 7 months ago. So whenever we like dredge that up in October, like it's not going to read like English to me by then.
Love that. Well, mate, I'd love to hear your rating nonetheless. Nonetheless, go for it.
I thought it was a very fun film to watch. It's obviously quality wise, visually and sound quality, an improvement on all of the Rocky films that came before it. Editing wise, as you said, there's no wasted moments. It's very quickly edited, but not choppy. And of course, as I've said, I feel like Michael B. Jordan's performance as Donnie salvages the character from being completely unlikable, and the romance between him and Bianca is incredibly likable, and I'm sure for some people relatable. I feel like it is true to form, and I just had a really fun time watching this, more fun than I've had since probably Rocky 4. Rocky 5 I thought was better than the critics say, and Rocky Balboa, I recognized that it was good, but I didn't find it particularly fun to watch. But
That's fair.
here I
That's fair,
really
Colin.
enjoyed
Yeah.
every minute, and I feel like I would give it an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10.
Brilliant, buddy. Yeah, I have to agree with everything you said there, dude, for sure. I mean, like I was sort of saying before the start of the review, like I wish I had watched the Rocky films when this film was announced or released. I would have been so excited because this film's so good. It's one of those films where I can come back and watch and feel motivated and things like that. And I think there's so many great scenes. There's a really beautiful one take with the in the boxing match in Mexico. I forgot to mention as well. And yeah, there's so many. It's so well directed, so visually stunning. I'd have to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Didn't not quite the 10,
Wonderful,
but yeah,
not quite the
great film.
10.
Yeah. Well, one
Okay,
film
so
that we're going to go on to now. Well, the obvious choice is Creed 2. So, any opening remarks from you, bud?
well, we've talked previously about potential issues that we've had with the antagonists of these films.
Hmm.
There's of course Apollo Creed, who was never really a villain, but the antagonistic figure.
Yeah,
He was sort of more the shrewd businessman. And
yeah.
then of course there was Mr. T, who made absolutely no impact. His performance was ridiculous and unlikable. I don't even. Oh, the character was Clubber Lang, and then of course Ivan Drago, this violent killing machine. But the performance, was sort of cold and menacing.
And the sort of Mr. T character, it was a bit of a nothing guy.
Yeah, and Mason Dixon, was an admirable performance, but very low impact. But and of course Tony Bellew, great performance, but not. We have never before spent much time with the antagonists. So some great performances, some admirable performances, some terrible performances,
Mhm.
but we've never spent time with them. And this film began from Victor's perspective, and it sort of made me very optimistic that this film would be different. And I feel like that really gave a strong opening to the film.
I agree. I actually thought the Victor Drago character, he was one of the most surprising characters in the film for me. And I kind of felt, I don't know if I felt bad for, there's certainly moments where I feel bad for him in the film. And I think it's really refreshing. And bringing Drago back is genius for me. I love it. It's the perfect sort of, it's the perfect continuation of the Creed storyline for me, especially given the circumstances surrounding Apollo's death. And I think, yeah, it just, this movie made me realize how much I love these characters and how much of a short space of time that love came so quickly. And yeah, the to be told whenever, you know, from the film to be told from the Dragon's perspective for some parts is great. And I just love the tone of the film whenever they're on screen. Do you know what I mean? They feel so menacing.
Yeah, but my one gripe would be that I feel Ivan is missing his spiky blonde hair.
He is. No, he absolutely is. Yeah, for sure. Like, he kind of he looks so different as well, doesn't he? Like he looks like he obviously looks like Avon Drago, but like I don't know. I definitely just assume that's not his real life son. That's what I'm gonna say.
No, no, yeah. Were you not convinced by the family resemblance?
Well, that's it. Like this guy sort of reminds me a bit of a True Geordie-esque figure, doesn't he? He looks quite
Yeah,
similar. And
yeah, and
yeah,
yeah. I mean, he sort of gives a similar performance to Ivan Drago in Rocky Four. In the sort of silent killer type,
yeah,
and it was very refreshing to see that moniker passed, and it sort of gave Ivan, the window of opportunity to become a completely different character, and to, we saw a lot more of him. He had a lot more dialogue, and I feel like that was very refreshing.
yeah, 100%, buddy, 100%. And like it's weird because I think what one thing I really liked about this film is that it brings back the Danny Wheeler character who beats Paul sorry Donnie Creed in the sparring match in the first film, and actually has Donnie from the first film take his revenge by getting his keys for the Mustang back, and he finally beats Wheeler for the championship. I thought that was actually a great idea to have in the film. And yeah, I mean, this film is for me. I think it's better than the first, and that's a pretty hot take, I think. But for me, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it is better than the first, and I same as you. I love a callback, and it's very
Absolutely,
rewarding, as we said again,
absolutely.
for viewers, for sort of close together watching. And we talked about how sort of organic the relationship felt in the first film, and I think this film continues with that, with a very sweet proposal scene, and it seems a lot less insane than Rocky and Adrian getting together.
Yeah, no, it does. It absolutely does. The Donny when he's worrying about proposing, I thought that was so great, and I felt so bad for him when Bianca didn't actually have her hearing aids in, and he gives this really emotional speech, and then he's like, "Oh, I didn't hear any of that, did you?" She's like, "No," but I know that's part of their romance. Like it's so great. Like I love that, and obviously this culminates in
Yeah,
them having a
because
kid together.
Yeah, because his first proposal really, which she ended up not actually hearing, was a bit, it was a bit waffly, and he said a lot of things that didn't need to be said because, she knew exactly how he felt about her. So the second proposal, where really it's just a stripped down, just portrayal of his feelings.
Yeah,
I felt it felt a lot more appropriate,
yeah,
and just comparing that to Rocky and Adrian getting together, getting engaged and married and having a child all in Rocky 2. That this did seem a lot less
yeah.
crazy. Seeing as their relationship actually is affectionate and consensual.
That's so true. That's always a good. That's whenever I'm getting in relationships, you want it to be consensual as well, and you want it to be,
Yeah,
you
two
know,
two ticks.
yeah, absolutely tick the boxes. And I sort of mentioned that whenever the Dragos are on screen, I feel a sense of intimidation, and it's weird because that also leads into like I think the Creed character all of a sudden feels really vulnerable. For me personally, like whenever he's, I mean, you can see the physical size difference between him and Victor, and it kind of it plays that similar dynamic from Rocky Four, where you the stature and the size of Ivan Drago as well. And I just think this film is so like, it's so like poetic, is the word I'd use, and it's contrary to the first one. I don't think it takes itself too seriously at all. Like this film feels like Rocky 4 but modernized, and I just love that so much. I mean, it's got over the top training sequences, this time in a desert. I mean, it's got everything. It does everything better than the first film, in my opinion. No faults from me whatsoever.
I did find this film somewhat headache-inducing, though, and sort of questioning the motivation, because I think often the motivation is clear, and sort of I suppose it is, as you said, poetic, that this film sort of carries over my confusion as to Apollo Creed's
Yeah,
motivation from Rocky Four, because he sort of portrays that his motivation is to sort of defend his country as having the best boxers in the world, but really he's just proving that he's not past his prime.
yeah.
Here, I just don't get it. It's his dad, that was killed. But fighting Drago doesn't really prove anything, and it doesn't get justice for, what Ivan did to Apollo. Victor hasn't done anything to him, and I think a lot of these thoughts will carry over into more notes that I have later, which will just be headache-inducing for the listener. Let's just say, because the questions I was asking myself during this about, why does he want to do this? What does this really serve? What is his motivation? I think they're all confusing questions when it comes to this film.
Yeah, well, mate, I'm happy to go on with it, mate. Like, go with any points that relate to that, because I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. To be honest, mate, I'll chip in where I can.
Well, the point of Apollo's Creed with Ivan in Rocky Four was that Apollo was past his prime, and he needed to prove to himself that he still had what it took.
Hmm.
Donnie is a champion, like he is just won the heavyweight title, so he has nothing to prove when it comes to the ability of his fighting. But you know, I'm looking for where I wrote this.
You're
Just
okay.
just need to look at it.
Mate, some of my notes, I'm
Uh,
just like, what the fuck? Like, some of my notes are like, they're awful.
yeah. Well, it becomes sort of clear near the end. When one of them throws, I was sort of guessing that one of them would throw in the towel eventually when it came to the fight.
Yeah,
Uh, and I was very surprised that it ended up not being Creed. It ended up being Ivan Drago himself on behalf
yeah.
of his son. Uh, but in all honesty, I think it would have been a more powerful moment had it been Creed. If he had finally realized that he had nothing to prove and that violence wouldn't solve the emotional baggage that he had
That's a really
for his
good
dead
point, buddy.
father.
That's a really good point. I love that what you're saying.
Nonetheless, it was powerful to see Ivan, like a man who was portrayed as like a bloodthirsty killer, throw in the towel. Because
Yeah,
for
it's
the
true. If he
seemingly
dies, he
insane person,
dies.
love was more important than winning, which was really the lesson from the first Rocky.
Well, the one point that I'd sort of mentioned that sort of relates to what you're saying there and how I felt bad for the Victor Drago character is when he gets knocked down and he looks over to his corner and like everyone's just left him. And I thought that was like a really brutal sort of realization. Like you never really see that from Rocky's point of view. Like everyone stays with Rocky, and it's sort of a thing that you realize like just because this guy is the opposite. Um, he's in the blue corner, like Creed's in the red corner, doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Like he's just his opponent. And yeah, it kind of got me thinking you know, I think it kind of got me thinking on the same lines as you. Like, it was really refreshing to see, like as you said, Ivan Drago, like a ruthless, brutal fighter, sort of say, "That's enough. I'll throw in the towel." And I thought it was a really great sort of visual as well to sort of see him concede in his son's defeat.
Yeah. Do you think, like, we talk a lot about sort of the fairness of the decisions made in the boxing fights that are seen in these films, that the point system is sort of thrown out over the idea of a knockout.
Yeah.
And here, do you think it's fair for the ability to call off the fight being held in the hands of the trainers? Do you think that's a fair institution?
I don't really. It's one of those things I haven't really considered, buddy, because you sort of think like in the first fight that Drago and Creed have, when it's called off. Sorry, it's disqualified because he hits him when he's down. Like it's sort of an interesting thing. I thought that was an interesting dynamic where Creed is able to keep his belt, given that Drago's absolutely dominating him throughout that fight. But I don't know, mate. What do you think about the trainers? Think they should be able to call off the fight? I'm undecided.
Not whatsoever, because if you
Yeah.
have like sort of a small amount of animosity towards the person that you're training, you could like bottle their chance at a title, or the defense of their title, just by screwing them over halfway through the fight.
Hmm.
I feel like the only person who knows what the fight is going like is the fighter themselves, which is why I never really understood sort of the negativity that was put on, or the criticism that was put on Rocky for not throwing in the towel on behalf of Apollo. I mean, Apollo begged him not to, so I really
Yeah.
don't see why anyone could possibly criticize Rocky's decision.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, but it's a really good point. We see the Rocky character in this film, like he takes even more of a backward step in terms of runtime. I mean, he's barely in this again, and yeah, it kind of seems to me like maybe the one criticism I can give this film perhaps is that the movie always seems to conclude that Rocky is the vital ingredient for a fighter's success. Without Rocky in your corner, you're fucked. And I don't know. I think that maybe is running a little bit stale for me at this point. We see when Creed chooses to do something on his own of his own accord, he's sort of condemned by the film for sort of being an idiot. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, why are you taking the Victor Drago fight? You'll lose. And Rocky, I don't know. I kind of was with Creed when he said, "Oh no, like I've done everything for Rocky, and now Rocky's just bailing on me. Like when I need this fight, like I kind of felt bad for him. I can understand maybe from Rocky's point of view, he doesn't want to see this history repeat itself. But I mean, Rocky didn't necessarily have to take the second Drago fight. Do you know what I mean? After he killed Apollo, it was a matter of proving a point, even though there was probably no point to be proven. So I don't know. I kind of was with Donnie in this one. What do you think, mate?
I feel like I wrote a lot about this, and then like I just physically can't
Can't
find
find it. It's in there
any notes on
somewhere.
this because
Yeah.
whilst I was watching the film, I was like, what is Donnie's motivation? Because obviously he feels a sense that there was no justice to the death of his father, so he needs to fight Victor Drago to prove a point. But throughout the film, I was racking my brains as to what point that is. If he wins against Drago, like what is proven? Like it was
Yeah.
I feel like
100%.
the motivation
100%.
in this film was a bit lost on me, and that may just be ignorance on my part, but I just couldn't think of what a logical person could think would come out of this positively. But I definitely agree with you that like it's Creed's battle nonetheless. It's his choice to make as to whether
Yeah.
he does it or not.
$100%.
Whether we understand his motivation or not, it's definitely his decision. And I feel like Rocky abandoning him in that moment of need, wasn't necessarily the best character decision, because I feel like he should have supported him, to help him at least as
Yeah.
best he could. And I
100%.
was genuinely worried that Bianca was going to slap Rocky when he came to the hospital to visit Donnie. But
Yeah.
I am glad she didn't, because I mean I've written here because Rocky's been right the whole movie. I don't remember that, but okay.
One of
There's
those
some
ones, yeah.
thoughts I have in the moment, but looking back on it, whether I understand the vendetta or not, it is Donnie's dad, it's Donnie's fight, it's his decision. So I feel like Rocky could have supported that.
I think it's a very fair contention, mate. No qualms from me on that one. Um, any more remarks from you, buddy?
Well, I think that there's nothing new here, because as you said, it is really just a modernized Rocky Four. Sort of with a new vendetta because of the events of Rocky Four. But it is, as you said, like you sort of said yourself, it is a better film than the first, but it's less original probably.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there's anything new here, but I don't even know what I mean. What I've written here is objectively nothing new here, but whatever it is, maybe Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson, or maybe the high definition of the fights, but it still manages to feel fresh. That
I
is a
know.
difficult sentence to read.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, because I sort of thought that
I
there's sort
know
of
what I mean. No, I think
there's new sort of techniques used in filming the fights. There's a first person perspective, especially in the first Drago fight we can see. And I think the Drago fights are just insane here. They're so good. I mean, especially the final one with like I actually really like the way the film shows the ring walks as well, especially with it provides some great music as well. And I think the film's actually quite emotional in some respects as well, especially when Bianca and Donnie find out that their child has been born deaf. And it's quite a sad scene as well. And I think in the third Creed film, one of the strengths of Michael B. Jordan is that he's a very like emotional guy as well. And I really can't wait to see like how much he has for the passion he has for the Donnie character is going to be transferred there. But no, I think I think the fight scenes are definitely elevated, especially with that combination of Tessa Thompson and Michael B. Jordan, as you said, but two of the most charismatic actors in Hollywood. So Absolutely great stuff from me. Yeah, I love it.
Do you have anything else to say, or would you like to go into the ratings of the
I'll
film?
go in for ratings, buddy. So for me, I think this film improves everything from the first. The action scene's incredible, very motivational, very inspiring. Love the desert training montage, and sort of like I said, I love the tones of the characters when you see them. You know, when you see Creed on his own, or with his team, you feel empowered. But when you see him with the Dragos, you feel nervous for him, like you feel like he's vulnerable. For me, 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this film. It might be
Well,
it's my favorite Rocky film, if I'm honest. It's my favorite Rocky film. What about from yourself, Callum? What's your thoughts?
yeah, I think from sort of an analytical quality standpoint, I think that there are less new and positive things about this film than the first Creed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has anything new to say
Mm-hmm.
as such, and I did have certain difficulties grappling with the motivation behind the need for Donnie to take the fight. So
Mm-hmm.
I did have more questions, and the film gave me more of a headache. But sometimes I like to have that sort of extra questions asked in my brain. Other times with Soul, disaster just makes me
Good
not enjoy the
times.
film.
Good
But here,
times.
it made me enjoy the film a little more because I was trying to get in Donnie's head, and I feel like that makes a character real when you have to think like them.
Mm-hmm. It's a
Because
really good point. That's a really good
you're
point.
asking, if this character was real and I was in their position, what would I do? And it really adds realism, I think. And as I've said before, quite ineloquently because I could barely read what I've written. I don't think there's anything new here, but that they managed to make it feel fresh. And obviously Tessa Thompson and Michael B. Jordan, they can't really go wrong. So I would say the quality of the film is slightly lower than the first, but the enjoyment was ramped up high. So I would give the film a 9 out of 10.
I love what you've said there, brother. Completely agree. I suppose, mate, we've done the Rocky films. That's another franchise ticked off our list, which is great. And it was great to end on a high with the Creed films. So just
I
before we
suppose
wrap
the
up,
question is, what's next?
what's next, buddy? Exactly. So I'm going to pass over to Callum to explain what podcasts are going to be coming up within the next week as well. So Callum, off to you, bud.
Well, confirmed episodes that we have are, between us are, continuing our Disney franchise episodes, with Disney Part 12. I know
Yep.
we're talking Meet the Robinsons, Bolt, Chicken Little, and Home on the Range. So
Love
that
it.
sounds like a nightmare. I know you do like a couple of them, and I do enjoy Meet the Robinsons, but the rest of them, oh, it's gonna be awful, I think.
Meet the Robinsons is good. I love Meet the Robinsons. So good. And then
And
obviously
we'll
Mulan as
also be
well.
talking about Mulan from 2020, a film that I don't think either of us have seen because we were
No.
not willing to pay £20 for a film that's
Uh,
apparently quite mediocre. So
Shocker.
it'll be another in our playlist of overdue reviews. Because I think we would have liked to have both seen it, and we sort of coincidentally had reviewed the animated Mulan right around the time that the first one
Yeah.
came out,
Yeah.
just out of chance. But I'm excited to watch it because it sort of has added some elements I'm interested in, and I've heard that the action sequences are admirable. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Is that me or you?
I don't know.
I don't know. I hear people, but yeah, I'm
It's
not. I'm
probably
not
me.
sure.
It's probably
But
me.
yeah, of course, WandaVision will be coming out in the next few weeks, and we'll
Yes.
be reviewing that. How and when it comes out.
Still a mystery.
There hasn't.
Still a mystery,
Yeah, there hasn't
apparently.
been confirmation as to whether it's going to be released weekly. That's the assumption based on how the Mandalorian's been released. But starting January 15th, we'll be talking about WandaVision, and then the week following that, we'll be talking about Riverdale. Uh,
Yay!
we're finally doing weekly episodes of
Yeah,
Riverdale. I'm hoping that our friend Cash can join us on that.
I hope so.
For an
Fingers.
episode or two. I feel like I
We're
think he
gonna
told
need
me
him.
that he would. I think he told me he'd do the tentpole episodes with us. So hopefully the series opener,
Opener,
mid-season finale,
absolutely.
and finale.
Oh man, but listen, mate. Been an absolute pleasure recording with you today, buddy. I
You
had a
too, my friend.
blast, and yeah, thanks very much to everyone who supported us recently. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and yeah, stay tuned for Disney Part 12, Mulan, WandaVision, and Riverdale episodes soon. Hope you guys are all safe and well. Take care, and bye bye.
Bye bye.